Now there's one thing that's remained the same throughout the entire history of old school RuneScape. Players have always tried to acquire the most expensive item in the game. Now today I think a lot of people know what the item is, but if we jumped all the way back to the inception of this game, it gets really interesting. So today I wanted to cover the history of the most expensive item in old school and how it's changed over the last 10 years. Old School RuneScape released February 22nd of 2013, and if we jump all the way back to that day, what was the most expensive item in the game? Who knows, beats me. Realistically, on the release day, there was hardly any gold in the game. It was an entirely fresh economy, fresh server, similar to like a modern Deadman mode. There's just not enough gold in the game for any particular item to be worth that much. It's certainly possible some players were swapping RS3 gold at the time to buy any rare items that were obtained on the first day, but over the next couple of months, some of the most expensive and rare items for the time started to enter the game. Now what exactly was the most expensive item at this time? Well, my first thought was the Elysian, but it was not actually released yet. There are so many items that we take it for granted today that just didn't exist back in 2013. There was no twisted bow, there was no scythe, no third age pickaxes. But around the summer of 2013, as more gold continues to enter the game, a couple of items start to boil to the top as the most prestigious and expensive items for the day. So what was the most expensive item for this time? Well, one that surprised me is actually the Dragon Full Helm. The Dragon Full Helm was available on release, and there are rumors of some selling for upwards of 300 to 400 mil near to the release of Old School. Besides that, although many third age items would be added on much later, the backup that Old School RuneScape is based off of did have third age in it, and in August of 2013, the most expensive third age item was actually the third age Mage Robe Top, which some were selling for around 300 mil. And we also had the third age Kite Shield going for around 250 mil, which was incredibly expensive for the time. You have to consider gold was so much harder to obtain back in 2013, plus the server was so new that there still wasn't that much gold in the game compared to today. Now moving on a little further in the timeline, we reach June of 2014 where a very interesting update entered the game. Old School received its first major Treasure Trail expansion, with the main addition being Elite Clue Scrolls. Now this is pretty important because with this came 3 of the most expensive items that would dominate the Old School RuneScape market for multiple years to come. These would be third age weapons, specifically the third age longsword, the third age wand, and the third age bow. At the time, these were by far the most rare items in Old School, and because of that, their price reflected it, costing hundreds of millions just for a cosmetic item, but that is just the beginning. Now just a few months later, in October of 2014, the Elysian Spirit Shield is released into the game. Unlike the other items so far, this is not only an incredibly rare item for the time, and still today, but also a useful item. So far, these items have simply just been cosmetics, but the Elysian is actually a powerful endgame PVM item, on top of being incredibly rare. Within just a few months, the Elysian had risen up to be Old School's most expensive item for the time, at 800 mil, but that wouldn't last very long. Oh, hey, it's my box from Factor, the sponsor of today's video. I love Factor. I'm personally so guilty of just being lazy and ordering takeout food all the time, but with Factor I can be lazy but actually eat healthy meals. The important part though is I get to continue to be lazy. Factor meals require no prep and cause pretty much no mess, which completely takes the stress out of meal planning. They have a huge menu that offers over 34 meals each week, as well as they have a ton of different add-ons like smoothies and shakes, and the menu is always changing. For example, this week I really want to try the pesto chicken, or maybe the 4 cheese tortellini looks really good. Factor offers a ton of flexibility for your meal plans as well. For example, I could order specifically vegetarian options, I could add or remove a meal at any time, or if I wanted I could easily skip a week entirely. So I would highly recommend trying out Factor. You can easily sign up using the link in my description or simply enter the code POGFLIPSEP50 to get 50% off your first box. And a massive thank you to Factor for again sponsoring the video. Just a few months later, we start to get reports of some of the third age items exploding in price. Before the summer of 2015, most of those Third Age items like the Third Age longsword, wand, bow, and even the Third Age cloak were hovering around 400 to 500 mil. But by July of 2015, the Third Age longsword had already gone up to a bill, and the other items were rising rapidly as well. Now this quick item rise was caused by certain players buying out any hyper rare Third Age items that would hit the Grand Exchange. A player known as Wilson was infamous for doing this, specifically to the Third Age longsword. So whenever a Third Age longsword hit the Grand Exchange, they would get bought out immediately, and the street price would continue to rise. The price of these Third Age items continued to rise at an incredible pace until infamously a Third Age longsword was sold for 4 billion gold in December of 2015. Wilson was responsible for the Third Age longsword going up to a peak of 4 bill, Third Age bows going up to a peak of 1.7 bill, Third Age wands got up to a peak of 1.5 bill, and Third Age cloaks reached max cash. An absolutely incredible run up, and these items would continue to be insanely inflated for the foreseeable future. July 6th of 2016 is a really important day in the history of RuneScape's most expensive item, because on that day, Master Clue Scrolls were introduced into Old School. With this update, we got a ton of new items, but most importantly, we got 2 new pieces of Third Age, the Third Age axe and a Third Age pickaxe, which would become the new rarest item in Old School RuneScape. Compared to any other item in the game, these 2 items were by far the rarest. They're only obtainable from Master Clue Scrolls, which are incredibly slow to get, especially back in 2016. And the drop rate from them is incredibly rare, making them an order of magnitude rarer than any other item. Now with that said, the price of these items really only hovered around the 300 to 500 mil mark for the first year, which in hindsight seems low, but that's kind of just looking back with a 2023 lens. In 2016, I think people kind of underestimated just how rare Master Clue exclusive Third Age was, and how few would be in the game even in 2023. By the start of 2017, the price of the Third Age elite weapons had finally fallen significantly. All of them were under max cash again, but that was just in time for a new item that changed Old School forever. January 5th of 2017, we get Old School's first raid, the Chamber of Xeric, and in it we get the most powerful Old School exclusive item probably ever released, the Twisted Bow. The first Twisted Bow in Old School sold for max cash, which would quickly shoot it up to not only the most desirable item in Old School, but also the most expensive, and it would remain that way for a long time. Generally, there's a pretty close relationship between the price of cosmetic rare items like Third Age and the release of new, powerful, expensive items. When a new desirable item comes out that's really expensive, players will generally sell their useless Third Age to buy it instead, which usually tanks the price of Third Age until that gold starts to accumulate again and people don't know what to do with it, which at that point they'll start moving their money back into cosmetic rares. Now the start of 2017 would start kind of a new era for the most expensive item in RuneScape, and those would be the kind of god tier PVM items. The Twisted Bow would remain the most expensive item in Old School for all of 2017, but the Twisted Bow would hold its price pretty strongly at over $1 bill for most of the item's history. The only thing to really shake it up over the next couple of years was in 2018, where we get the second raid. The Theater of Blood release on June 7th released a bunch of new items, but of course the most expensive one, we get the Scythe of Vitur. On release, the Scythe was incredibly expensive. The first sale of a Scythe was rumored to be around 5 billion gold, which would be at the time the most expensive item ever sold in the game. Ironically, the Scythe started off as the most expensive of the raid uniques ever, even including Tombs of Amasket, but if you look at it today, the Scythe is the cheapest of the 3 mega rare items from raids, cheaper than the Twisted Bow, cheaper than the Tunic Shadow. The Scythe remained so expensive that it would not see its first sale on the Grand Exchange until September of 2018, 3 months later, where one would finally sell for max cash in September. Now of course, as we know, the Scythe did not retain its value nearly as well as the Twisted Bow, and would fall below $1 bill in the summer of 2019. Now around then, in April of 2019, we get another really interesting addition to Treasure Trails. In it, we get 2 new Master Clue exclusive Third Age items, those being the Third Age Druidic Top, Bottom, and Druidic Cloak. Now at this point, there is no doubt how rare these third age Master Clue items are, and with just more gold in the game in 2019, the first third age Druidic top sells for max cash, making it the most expensive item for 2019. Now the Druidic top and bottom would dominate for the next couple of years, routinely hitting a max cash stack or even more. Really, there was only one blip in the radar, and that came in February of 2020 with the release of the Nightmare. With the Nightmare release, we got the Harmonized Orb, and this item was incredibly expensive on release, the first one selling for well above a max cash stack, but the item would plummet pretty quickly with the first one selling on the Grand Exchange within the month. And by the summer of 2020, this item would enter a downward spiral that it would never truly break out of. Now 2020 was a really interesting year for a couple of reasons, but during the pandemic, one thing I noticed that was really interesting, the price of most third age items shot up tremendously. There's a huge run up in every item, including the new newish third age Druidic top, bottom, and cloak. The third age bow went up to like 1.5 bill, and most importantly, the third age pickaxe hits the max cash value finally, after being in the game for 4 years. Now this would eventually cool off for most third age items, but not for the third age pickaxe. In June of 2020, the third age pickaxe would hit the max cash value, and it would never fall below it ever again. Now at this point, the exact price of an item like the third age pickaxe, which is not traded on the website that tracks transactions, starts to become very hard to pin down. But for now, we simply know that it is above 2.1 bill. Now in August of 2022, we get RuneScape's third raid. With it, we get the Tomb Beacon Shadow, which again releases at max cash but falls very quickly. Realistically though, the third age pickaxe is more expensive than this item anyway, and by 2023 there are rumors that sales of the pickaxe are going for 4 billion gold. The price of the pickaxe continues to rise. The only other real contender for a short period of time comes in July, where the Soul Reaper Axe is released. This item was sold a few times above max cash for 3 bill plus. Realistically though, still probably less expensive than the third age pickaxe. Now finally we jump forward to today, September of 2023. What is going on in today's market? Well, we have the third age axe, which has finally hit its own max cash amount. Took a lot longer, but thanks to the release of Forestry and it just being so rare, it's finally hit the max cash amount. But most importantly, the third age pickaxe, what is it at? Well, rumors are putting its price at around 6 to 8 billion gold. By far the most expensive item today, and that would also make it the most expensive item of all time. Now it's too early to say if an item like this is going to explode in price similar to the blue party hat run-up, but at this point prices become very unreliable. There are so few sales, it's ripe for manipulation, but there's no doubt the third age pickaxe is the most expensive item. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Now before I go here, I want to give a giant thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Aelandra, Mitch Reynders, The Hybrid, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. You guys are awesome. I do really appreciate it. Also thank you to Kapersky, YoYoSub89, and NDM0001 for being subscribed at the Runite tier. Thanks everyone again, and I'll see you next time.